Oh, okay. Thanks. So, Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to the morning class today. We'll just begin by singing a song that Srila Prabhupada very often sang before giving class, Jaya Radha Madhava. By any chance, is there anyone new here for the first time or any? Okay. So let me just. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Just do a quick song today because I think my voice is also, every time my throat gets dry, I start coughing. It's a Vrindavan remnant, I think. So before we start, I'll just offer some praise to our spiritual master, our founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada, and all the devotees. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So yes, I pray for all of your blessings that something beneficial can be said today. As usual on Saturdays, we go through the Transcendental Diary, which is a book written by Hari Sauri Prabhu, who was a personal servant of Srila Prabhupada. And today we're just going to be covering one day, August 24th, 1976. And the quite amazing thing about Srila Prabhupada is even just speaking about one day in his servant's diary from 50 years ago, we might not even cover it in 1 hour fully. Well, we'll see how far we can get, but I think we should be able to at least go through everything a little bit. But that's the amazing thing. If I asked you to summarize what happened yesterday in your life, I'm sure you could do it in less than 1 hour. I'm sure it wouldn't take that long. But with a personality like Srila Prabhupada, even just summarizing one day of his life could take more than a day, because that's the nature of the personality we're dealing with. So Harisori Prabhu begins saying, Prabhupada went for his walk again today at the public gardens, and Harikesh Maharaj recorded it. I am still too weak to accompany them and spent the day resting. So this day was not actually personally experienced by Harisori Prabhu, who's the author, but, as was so wonderfully done, they still managed to record it, and they still discussed the day's events, because you can see by what's written afterwards, Harisori Prabhu had conversations with the devotees to find out what was going on. So it starts with the Prabhupada's massage, which, for Prabhupada's massage, Harikesh enlisted the help of Godrum Das, a tall, fair-haired 25-year-old American who has recently arrived in India and is serving here in Hyderabad. Oh yes, this whole... right now we're in the Hyderabad section here. Godrum has been stationed as a guard at Srila Prabhupada's door during the day. Later, I heard from them how the session went. Prabhupada was already sitting in his gamsha on his mat when Godrum walked in. After asking him his name, Prabhupada signaled for him to begin. Godrum, a soft-spoken, gentle giant type, did his best. Despite his strong build, he had never massaged anyone before, and he tried to massage Prabhupada's head carefully, perhaps too much so, being afraid that he might hurt him if he applied too much pressure. But Prabhupada kept telling Harikesh to tell Godrum to do it harder. Finally, Prabhupada called Harikesh over and told him to help. Godrum sat to the side and watched as Harikesh finished Prabhupada's head. Then, as Harikesh began Prabhupada's back, Prabhupada called Godrum over again and asked, "Do you think you have learnt now?" Godrum said that he had, and so Prabhupada had him sit at his right side to massage his chest and stomach. Now, with more confidence, Godrum massaged a little harder on his chest. So I think this is quite similar to me. I've never massaged anyone before, and I'm fairly certain when I do one for the first time, it will be very gentle and careful. But, sometimes you need quite a bit of pressure in massage for it to actually be effective. So I can identify with this. And I observed this actually with Prabhupada, that when he had a very nice teaching methodology, where he'd either teach you directly by example, like he'd cook a meal and, teach everyone directly how it's to be done, or he'd call someone that he trained already to train someone else. And so he had a very nice teaching methodology. And in general, from what I've observed, there was no real harshness as such. He understands that this is all a learning process. So it was very nice and sweet. And at the end of the massage, Godrum asked, out of curiosity, he asked Srila Prabhupada if a chiropractor would be helpful for giving him massage. And Prabhupada said no. And that's just where this part ends. But to me, this makes a lot of sense, because on the one hand, Prabhupada is receiving these massages, and it's for his health. It's benefiting his health. But if it was only for the purpose of his health, then he could just get anyone to do it. It doesn't have to be his disciples. He could get a chiropractor. He could do, so many things. But the reason his disciples are massaging him is because it's a loving exchange as well. And he's having these loving exchanges with his disciples for his disciples' benefit. And who knows, I don't know Godrum Prabhu personally, but who knows, we might, if if he's still around and we were to ask him, what kept you in Krishna consciousness all these years, he could say something like, that one time I massaged Prabhupada and it was such a special experience that it just kept me going my whole spiritual life. You hear things like that, not necessarily in this case, but we've heard things like this. So these, and later on I think it's mentioned as well, again, the service to the Guru is done by either Vapu or Vani. And Vapu is serving the physical form of the Guru, and that can be in many different forms, giving massage, driving the Guru, cooking for the Guru. And then serving the Vani is serving the Guru's instructions. And we do here, obviously the Vani exists eternally. The Vapu may not always be there, especially after the spiritual master leaves the world, but the Vani is always there, and so those instructions are so valuable. But while the spiritual master is present, we should take advantage of both the Vapu and the Vani. That just makes sense. And this was an example of how Prabhupada was allowing himself to be served in his Vapu form. Then later, Godrum brought Srila Prabhupada his afternoon garland, but made the mistake that devotees often seem to do. It was wet. Srila Prabhupada took it off and handed it back to him. Godrum took it, dried it off as best as he could, and then gave it back to Srila Prabhupada, who was pleased by his endeavor. And then now it moves on to kind of the afternoon part of the day. This afternoon, as the Gora Arati began downstairs, the endowments minister returned, this time with the chief manager of the Tirupati Balaji temple. So this is a minister of the state who had been visiting Prabhupada, who had visited a few times, and he had come back, and this time he brought the manager of the Tirupati Balaji temple. And if anyone is not familiar, this is a very, very big temple. It's known as like the richest temple in the world. Everyone donates very profusely there. And it's part of a pastime also, where the Lord, for the Lord's wedding, he took a loan from Kuvera, and he's still apparently repaying that debt, and therefore everyone is helping the Lord. And basically, they're getting to serve the Lord in this personal way. We know, of course, that the Lord is not a poor man. He's always accompanied by Lakshmi, but in this case, Lakshmi and him had a disagreement, and therefore he's got a debt to pay to Kuvera. A small contingent from the local Marwari community was also present, as were a few of our devotees, including myself. It was perhaps the most important meeting Srila Prabhupada has had with the minister so far. At least Prabhupada considered it significant enough that he had Arundhati transcribe the recording of it right afterwards, with instructions that a copy be sent to every minister in the state. Prabhupada didn't waste any time getting down to the essence. Pleased by the interest the commissioner is showing in his mission, he was even more direct in his dealings than at any of their previous meetings. So you do not believe in these things, that there is Bhagavan and Bhagavan comes? He has got a mission. Do you believe in these things? Frankly speaking, do you believe in these things? We do believe, Mr. Raju assured him. Then you must act according to his mission, Prabhupada told him. The mission is yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. When we are engaged in glanir dharma, which is not dharma, cheating. Glanir means which is abominable. Yes, dharma means dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. Dharma cannot be manufactured by any man. Turning to Harikesh, he asked him, "You have got 6th canto?" Harikesh knew the verse without even looking. 6th canto, 3rd chapter, 19th verse. Yes, find this verse. Yamaraj said, Dharmam tu shakshad bhagavat pranitam. Even the demigods, they cannot manufacture dharma. Harikesh read out the Sanskrit and then the English translation. Real religious principles are enacted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although fully situated in the mode of goodness, even the great rishis who occupy the topmost planets cannot ascertain the real religious principles, nor can the demigods or the leaders of Siddha Loka, to say nothing of the asuras, ordinary human beings, Vidyadharas and Charanas. Nobody can, Srila Prabhupada enjoined. This is the principle. So when so many rascal dharma is introduced, that is dharmasya glani. So we must know this. Then we can understand what is the mission of Bhagavan. When rascals are introducing so-called so many dharmas, that is dharmasya glani. Do you accept or not? Yes, we accept, Mr. Raju assented, his head shaking from side to side. In India, when they do the side-to-side head shake, that means yes. Over here, it means no when you do this. But in India, this means yes. So it's worthwhile looking at these two verses that Prabhupada is emphasizing. The one is from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 7. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam shajamyaham. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. And Prabhupada is focusing on this word glani, which he, in the Bhagavad Gita, he gives as discrepancies. And then it's worthwhile looking at the purport of this verse, which, just like Prabhupada in this conversation, references the other verse that Prabhupada was emphasizing. I'm just going to read a portion of the purport. In the Bhagavatam, it is stated that such principles are the laws of the Lord. Only the Lord can manufacture a system of religion. The Vedas are also accepted as originally spoken by the Lord himself to Brahma from within his heart. Therefore, the principles of Dharma or religion are the direct orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Dharmam tu shakshad bhagavat pranitam. These principles are clearly indicated throughout the Bhagavad Gita. The purpose of the Vedas is to establish such principles under the order of the Supreme Lord, and the Lord directly orders at the end of the Gita that the highest principle of religion is to surrender unto Him only and nothing more. And we'll see as this conversation flows, there's actually a nice systematic flow that Prabhupada introduces that no one can actually argue with. And so everyone just had to accept it. The minister, the temple management at Balaji temple. And so this verse that was being referenced was Srimad Bhagavatam 6.3.19. Real religious principles are enacted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And I'll just read a bit of the purport here, which also, it's going to give us a little view into what's coming in the future, but it says, herein it is stated that the real religious principle is that which is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That principle is stated in Bhagavad Gita. Sarva dharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam vraja. One should give up all other duties and surrender unto the lotus feet of Krishna. That is the real religious principle everyone should follow. Even though one follows Vedic scriptures, one may not know this transcendental principle, for it is not known to everyone. To say nothing of human beings, even the demigods in the upper planetary systems are unaware of it. This transcendental religious principle must be understood from the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly or from His special representative, as stated in the next verses. So we can see which way this conversation is heading, even in the purports. It's almost like these purports came from this conversation, or the conversation came from the purports. But we can see that Srila Prabhupada he's first establishing that God comes with a mission. And what is that mission? To establish the religious principles. Then, further than that, Dharmam tu Sakshat Bhagavat Pranitam, the real religious principles are enacted by the Lord, no one else. So he's coming to give the religious principles, and he's the only person that can give religious principles. The demigods cannot give us religious principles, and not only that, they are not even aware of those religious principles. Sama. So if for example, we are worshipping the demigods, that in itself is not the real religious principles that Krishna is giving. And those personalities we are worshipping, the demigods, are not even aware of the principles. So it doesn't make sense. Then this conversation continues. Yes, we accept, because after this explanation, the only thing you can do is accept. He said, yes, we accept. Prabhupada tipped his head up slightly, his eyebrows arching. Therefore, Bhagavan concludes at the end, you rascal, sarva dharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam. This is dharma, to surrender to the Lord. He preached to them for almost an hour, repeating the same point again and again, making it clear that he was prepared to give all the necessary time and advice to help them bring about the Lord's mission, but only if they were serious to adopt it. He repeated the observation he made yesterday, that since mainly the poor cultivators, the karmis, were giving their hard-earned wealth to Balaji, it was yagya. As such, he said, that money should not be used for any other purpose. That is our message. It should be utilized simply for the purpose of awakening the devotional inspiration, for no other purpose. So this is also instructive for us, obviously. Any wealth that comes to the temple must obviously only be engaged for the service of the Lord. And of course, that includes the service of the devotees. You know, it's not like, okay, yes, we're going to make very nice offerings for the Lord. All the temple residents, you can all starve, you know. We are serving the Lord. No, the serving the Lord includes serving the devotees. But Prabhupada was very, very emphatic in this conversation. I was actually listening to it on the way here. He was repeating these same points, and one point was that the money that comes should not be used for any other purpose. It should be used simply for the purpose of awakening the devotional inspiration. He cited the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in which it is said, Nitya Siddha Krishna Bhakti, that Krishna consciousness is the natural condition of every living being. As proof, he indicated us, his foreign disciples, Harikesh, Mahamsa, Prabhavishnu, Vasughosh, and myself. Although we were from America and Europe and have never had anything to do with Krishna, still we have taken to Krishna consciousness. We Indians or Hindus, we may have some concern with Krishna, but what have they got? They haven't got anything to do with Krishna. Now you pay them 1 lakh rupees and ask them, you become again a Christian, you become again a Parsi. Just see, practical. These are young boys. You ask them that I'll give you a good girl, I'll give you good money. You give up this Krishna consciousness. Come here. Ask them, make a test. They'll refuse, they'll kick out. Therefore it is a fact, as it is stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna Bhakti Nitya Siddha. Everyone has got Krishna Bhakti eternally. It is not artificial. It is the eternal link that has been awakened. So he's using his foreign disciples as proof that This Krishna consciousness is already there within the heart. It didn't need to be manufactured. And you can see, you can test these boys. No matter what you do, they will never give up their Krishna consciousness. And that is the test that this is not some artificial imposition on them. This is them acting in their natural condition. Mr. Raju again agreed, but his next comments revealed the narrow focus of his vision. Let us say there are 100 leprosy patients. There are 1,000 orphans. We put them there, give them food, and make them pray to Krishna. Srila Prabhupada cut in. We have no objection, he told them, because our principle is Krishna Bhakti Nitya Siddha. So Krishna Bhakti is there in everyone, so leper and non-leper. Just like Vivekananda, he took up Daridra Narayan. This is an absurd proposition. Narayan is never Daridra. But if you put this argument that Narayan is everywhere, so if Narayan is everywhere, why you take up only Daridra Narayan? Why not Dani Narayan, which is rich Narayan? So Daridra means poor and Dani means rich. So why take up only Daridra Narayan, the poor Narayan? Why not Dani Narayan, rich Narayan also? Similarly, Krishna Bhakti is everywhere. It is in the leper or non-leper. So why we should take particularly the lepers? So that is outwardly a social service that they are taking care of the leper. So if that is the vision, it will not be right. Krishna Bhakti, even a karmi like big owner of factories, he is more diseased than the leper because he has no Krishna Bhakti. So we have to take care of the leper and the richest man also if he has no Krishna Bhakti. So this concept of Daridra Narayan was invented by Vivekananda, and he basically after traveling through India, he saw lots of poor people, and then he referred to feeding the poor as Narayan Seva, which meant serving the poor is serving Narayan. But of course, this doesn't really make sense, and Prabhupada mentions this as well in the purport to Srimad Bhagavatam. Daridra cannot be Narayan, neither Narayan can be Daridra, because Narayan is always accompanied by Shri, Lakshmi ji. Therefore, how he could be Daridra? So, you cannot take a poor person and call them Narayan, and neither can you take Narayan and call him poor. It's wonderful to serve the poor by distributing prasad, and even Prabhupada mentions this as well. It is recommended that everyone distribute prasad, considering every living being a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Even in feeding the poor, one should distribute prasad. In Kali Yuga, there is a scarcity of food almost every year, and thus philanthropists spend lavishly to feed the poor. For this, they invent the term Daridra Narayan Seva. This is prohibited. One should distribute sumptuous prasad, considering everyone a part of the Supreme Lord, but one should not juggle words to make a poor man Narayan. Everyone is related to the Supreme Lord, but one should not mistakenly think that because one is related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has become the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan. Such a Mayavad philosophy is extremely dangerous. So, we cannot be looking at people and making them equivalent to Narayan. Of course, we know we are all parts and parcels of the Lord. We all emanate from Him. He is the source of all of us. But that does not make us equal to Him. It's not well understood actually out there in the world. This Achintya Beda Bed Tattva that Lord Chaitanya gave, the inconceivable, simultaneous oneness and difference from the Lord. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, this has confused philosophers it's still confusing philosophers even now. people are always wondering, are we the same as God? Are we different from God? And we're fortunate that in Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada has given us such simple ways to understand such deep, profound concepts, like the Achintya Bheda Bhed Tattva, which PhD people are still struggling to understand. But a very simple example Prabhupada gives is the ocean water and a drop. If we take a drop of water from the ocean, we can taste that it's salty. It's got the same taste, it's got the same qualities as the ocean. But obviously you cannot drown in a drop. You can drown in the actual ocean, you cannot drown in the drop of the ocean water. So we can see that the living entity has the same qualities as the Supreme Lord, but is different in quantity, in potency, in the power. And it's something quite easy to understand. I think everyone here, understands that. But this Mayavad philosophy of equating the Supreme Lord with the living entity is very, very dangerous. And this is actually the last snare of Maya. This is Maya's way of keeping us in this material world. Even when we think that, even when we're trying to make advancement, Maya is subtly convincing us that you are God. And that is clearly not the case. And if you need convincing of that, just try making the sun set now, or you can't. You're not God. So Prabhupada is giving this proposal that he's defeating this philosophy, and also saying that we have to take care of the leper and the richest man also. Srila Prabhupada created this ISKCON with 7 purposes in mind. The first purpose he listed was to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large, and to educate all peoples in the techniques of spiritual life in order to check the imbalance of values in life and to achieve real unity and peace in the world. So we're saying educate all peoples and propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large. It's not about focusing on the poor. In fact, I think in our experience we've seen that oftentimes the rich people are the ones who need spiritual life even more, because wealth has blinded them and they're going down further into a materialistic path. And so everyone needs spiritual knowledge. Everyone needs prasad as well. The poor people, the rich people. Of course, it can work out very nicely. The rich people can fund the prasad distribution. And for everyone watching online, yes, you're more than welcome. Rich people can donate. We will cook, we will distribute prasad to the poor and the rich, because everyone needs this. Everyone needs spiritual knowledge. Everyone needs the mercy of the Lord. And it can work nicely. The minister agreed, but made the point that a rich man is able to enter the temple and approach the deity and take prasadam, but the lepers and misfortunates are not allowed. He can't come, therefore God goes to him. It sounded like a decent proposal, but Prabhupada pulled him up again. You cannot manufacture where God goes. You should have to take lesson from God. If we manufacture ideas, that will never be successful. If you want to be servant of God, you must take instruction from God. That is wanted. You cannot manufacture idea that God wants this. So first of all, try to understand what is God's mission. God's mission is, it is clearly said, yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati. So more or less, everyone is entangled with this glanir dharma. They have manufactured. He told them that demigod worship was another example of glanir dharma, and cited Krishna's condemnation of it in the Bhagavad Gita. So again, this minister keeps on putting ideas forward, and Prabhupada keeps on snapping them in half. And of course we know, therefore God goes to him, which is quite topical at this time, because of course next week is our Rath Yatra. everyone's invited, and we know that the Lord does leave the temple to visit those who ordinarily don't come to him. So we know that that does happen, but not in the way this minister was proposing. He was proposing that, let's serve the poor and let's distribute to them, and therefore that's God going to them. But Prabhupada didn't respond with talking about Rath Yatra. He's driving on this point about Glanir Dharma, that God comes with a mission. If you want to be a servant of God, you have to understand what his mission is and then propagate that mission. He said that the real business was yagyatar karmano nyatra loka yam karma bandhana. People were giving their money in good faith to Balaji. That money should not be utilized for any other purpose except yagya. First of all, you have to decide like that. Then we can give you direction. First of all, you have to decide that this money, not a single farthing, should be spent for any other purpose than performing yagya. Then we can give you right direction. And if you have planned to utilize this money for any other purpose, that is not Krishna's mission. That is your mission. So first of all, you have to decide whether you are going to execute Krishna's mission or your mission. And then Prabhupada further, he mentions it again. Krishna's mission is very clearly defined. Everything is there in the Bhagavad Gita. Dharmasya glanir bhavati. So any dharma, so-called dharma, which does not awaken their Krishna consciousness is glani. Krishna does not want that. If you're against the will of Krishna, against the mission of Krishna, if you want to do something, you can do. People are doing so many things. That is also mentioned by Krishna. And then he had Harikesh read out several verses from Bhagavad Gita about the fate of those who adopt the asuric path of opposition to Krishna. And then he added another relevant point. So this is my request, that our money, there is nothing our money, everything Krishna's. But we are thinking, because we are asuric, just like Kamsa, Hiranyakashipu, Ravan. What is Ram? He's mentioning Ravan. That is asuras. They think like that, and that is asuric. Because otherwise, Ishavasyam idam sarvam, everything belongs to Krishna. Therefore, yagya is advised. The sooner you hand over Krishna's property to Krishna, it is good for you. So this is one of the kind of paradoxes or strange things in this world, that everything actually belongs to Krishna. We cannot claim proprietorship over anything. And it's quite easy to understand, because even before we were born, those things were there. This table was made by a person from wood and stuff, but we didn't make the wood, we didn't make the trees. And this whole world was here before we took birth here, and we're enjoying the facilities, but clearly it doesn't belong to us. So the irony is, the Supreme Lord is the proprietor and controller of everything, but he himself is not attached. He does not even think this. He doesn't have false ego. He's renounced. That's one of the interesting opulences of the Lord. The 6 opulences of the Lord are given as beauty, knowledge, strength, fame, wealth, and renunciation. And those 5, the first 5, you can kind of understand. Most people are looking to increase either their beauty, their wealth, their fame, their knowledge, their strength. Very few people are looking to increase their renunciation. But the Lord, despite having those first 5 opulences, he's also renounced, which means he's not even attached to those things. And the irony is that nothing belongs to us, but we consider ourselves controllers and proprietors of everything. So that's just an irony of how we, small living entities, but yet we consider ourselves as actually owning things. So in that way, Prabhupada is giving more. He's saying that all this money has been given for the service of the Lord. But also, you should never be even considering it our money. It was always the Lord's money to begin with. It was never yours. So he's giving even more reason why all this should only be used in the service of the Lord. Mr. Raju said that they were karma yogis. We start the day with surrendering to God and asking Him to show us the way. Beyond that, I don't know what our duty. And then Prabhupada cut him off again. Srila Prabhupada was again single-pointed and focused. He told them that their business was to bring people to the point of Satatam Kirtayanto Mam. As we are doing, we are always chanting Hare Krishna. But if you manufacture in your own way, that you can do, that will never be successful. If you have to execute the mission of Krishna, you have to take instruction of Krishna and do it rigidly. Then you'll be successful. Krishna's mission is that one must know Krishna and surrender to Him. This is mission. Krishna does not say that by karma yoga one can understand Him. Krishna says, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yas chasmi tatvataha. You cannot say we are karma yogis. Prabhupada said that karma yoga was third class. It was karma mixed with a little bhakti. Jnana yoga was a similar adulteration. Real bhakti was completely free from any influence of karma or jnana. The point of pure bhakti was Krishna's mission. Except Krishna bhakti, everything is glani, he told them. Everything is discrepancy. So their business was to awaken that bhakti, and it could be done by hearing from a pure source. Quoting the Srimad Bhagavatam, he said this was the formula. He quoted the verses 1 to 17 to 19, which is, I'll just go through them very quickly because I see we don't have too much time. But it's basically the verses, Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So we're seeing this devotees with material desire, by hearing the message of the Lord, this desire for material enjoyment gets cleansed from the heart of the devotee. So bhakti is superior to karma and jnana. Nor would he be interested in helping them. If you want to do according to the direction of Krishna, our cent% cooperation will be there. We'll not touch a single farthing of your money, but we can give you direction. Spend it like that. And government men, you can see that we are not touching a single farthing of your money, but it is being spent for Krishna's mission. That you can believe. It is the duty of the government men to see that the people may not misrepresent. That is the Vedic injunction. Prithu Maharaj was to see that a Brahmin is acting like Brahmin. Kshatriya is doing like Kshatriya. So it is the government's duty to see that Balaji's money, Krishna's money, is to the farthing spent for his mission. That is government's duty, that nothing is misused, nothing is misrepresented. So he's clarifying here that we're not going to take your money, we're going to be the Brahmins here. We'll tell you exactly how your money should be used. You use it. You are the Kshatriyas, you go ahead and use it according to the direction we give, and we'll ensure, our advice, we'll ensure that and we'll make sure that we give you the proper advice of how to execute Krishna's mission, and you make sure that nothing is misused. We know how to execute the mission of Krishna. Anyone can know because direction is there. It is not a secret thing. It is open secret. But you have to act upon it. That requires training. And so far my experience goes, the whole world will take to Krishna consciousness. And then Prabhupada was mentioning a few things, how he was mentioning to the minister how he was receiving so much of criticism despite spreading this mission of Krishna consciousness. And a lot of people were envious, the Mayavadis and various personalities were envious because they were thinking that he's somehow managing to bring money from foreign countries and the CIA is sponsoring him and all sorts of things. And so he was clarifying to the minister that he is simply selling books of this message. And that's the only reason why, money is coming to him. And Prabhupada mentions, so whatever teeny effort I have got, I shall try to establish temples of Krishna all over the world with my teeny income. I have got book sales. Krishna has given me very good chance. It is beyond any dream. We are selling books, $60,000 daily, and we are known as the topmost publisher of religious and philosophical books in the world. Our books are approved by the greatest learned scholars of all universities, because they are seeing a new light, no hodgepodge philosophy. So Prabhupada was clarifying how money was coming to him. And even his godbrothers had accused him. And then they showed the video, which I encourage everyone to watch this video. I think we've played bits of it at the temple. They showed them the video Brilliant as the Sun, which shows how the BBT produces these books. And everyone was thrilled when they saw it. Prabhupada says, I made the book trust, $60,000 they are selling. So as author, I could have derived from them at least 10% minimum, $6,000 per day. $6,000 means 60,000 rupees. That could have been my daily income. But I take little kitchery from them, that's all. So Prabhupada, if he wanted, Prabhupada could have been a very rich man just by selling his books and, keeping the income. But he just says, I take little kitchery, that's all. Everything got reinvested. All the money from selling the books got used for printing more books and also for establishing temples. And so as the visitors were watching this film of how the books were produced, they were seeing the enormity of the whole scale of the operation. And they were thrilled to see, the whole warehouse with the BBT logo. It's mentioned, it was quite a contrast to the Tata-made public carriers and goods vehicles that traverse the roads in India. Their eyes widened with amazement to see it, and they nudged each other in appreciation. Then Prabhupada touched upon his plans for his farming communities, including the proposed 600-acre project in Hyderabad. And finally, he concluded the meeting by having Harikesh read out a string of verses from Bhagavad Gita, in which Krishna left Arjuna to decide what he wanted after Krishna had explained everything to him. And Arjuna declared, Yate chasi tata kuru, that he was prepared to act just according to Krishna's order. Mr. Raju seemed to have grasped Srila Prabhupada's point of not watering things down, for he said, no, we are agreed to that. There is actually no difference at all than what you are saying. Therefore, there is no compromise. Otherwise, if there are compromises, there will be adjustments. It will lead to dilution. We understand. Full of appreciation, the minister and his companions then left. So we can see this whole systematic flow that Prabhupada gave. He said, you are getting so much of money for the Lord, but it should be used in his mission. Do you agree? Yes. What is his mission? Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. He comes to establish the principles of religion. And further to that, Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. He's the only person who can establish the principles of religion. And then what is that principle? Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. Just give up all these other practices and just surrender unto me. And then how do you surrender unto me? Krishna says, Bhaktya mam abhijananti. I can only be understood by devotional service, and satatam kirtayanto mam. Just by chanting the Lord's name continuously, we can develop our Krishna consciousness. So he gave this whole systematic flow from Bhagavad Gita, which they all accept, and eventually they appreciated and then they left. Prabhupada didn't stop preaching even after their departure. He encouraged Prabhu Vishnu to share some of his experiences preaching to college professors. And one of the professors propagated this idea that Bopadev was the true author of the Bhagavatam. And then Prabhupada had him read verse 218, where Sukadev Goswami says that he heard the signs from his father, Vyasadeva. And then Prabhupada added, the speaker of the Bhagavatam, he's saying, I learnt it from my father. His father is Vyasadeva, and these rascals say Bopadev. Just see, with such nonsense knowledge, they are posted in big post. He does not know who is the author of Bhagavat. Here it is distinctly said, I learnt it from my father. And then Prabhupada kept on having discussions with Mahamsa Swami about some land that was donated. And then he ended with a session where a man who could read Orion. So Prabhupada had the man read out Gaur Govinda Maharaj's manuscript so he could check the philosophy. And then there was another small incident. For Srila Prabhupada, there is no stopping. He is like the ocean, with a limitless depth of devotion that produces unceasing waves of Krishna Bhakti. Even in his quieter times, he overflows with Krishna consciousness. In the evening, I went into his room and he was eating pomegranate. The half-eaten fruit was sitting on his desk, the bright red seeds exposed. As I reached out to clear it away, he said, just see, all the universes are packed up just like this, and the total is the material world. I asked, are they packed up so tightly? Yes, he replied, and then with a grin added, the material scientists, what do they know of other universes? They cannot even estimate the number of planets in this universe. In this way, Prabhupada relates everything to Krishna consciousness, and every statement he makes is significant and educational. One of the great things about traveling with him is that you get to serve both his bodily aspect and his teachings, Vapu and Vani. He is constantly preaching, and if no one is around, then he calls in his servants and preaches to them. He is so enthusiastic to speak about Krishna. So even when one's mind is distracted, one cannot help but be Krishna conscious in Prabhupada's presence, simply by his association. You can see, so even when there's no one to preach to, Prabhupada used to call in his servants and preach to them. And then finally the day ends with, I received a letter from the Melbourne devotees today explaining that their tulsi plants have red spider mites. They wanted to know if the leaves could still be offered to the deities. I asked Prabhupada and he replied, yes, tulsi can be offered in any condition. Tulsi is never bad. So this is something I've actually wondered about occasionally as well. Sometimes, there's little, things growing near tulsi, and we wonder, can we offer those leaves? Let's look for the nice leaves to offer. But Prabhupada says, tulsi can be offered in any condition. Tulsi is never bad. So I'm glad there is some time left for some questions or comments. Not much time, but I just went through everything. There's about 5 minutes, I think, if anyone has any questions, comments, additions, corrections. Okay. Looks like we're ending early then. So thank you everyone for coming. And Srila Prabhupada ki jai.